Hello, and thank you for joining us for part two of our Engage Data Training webinar.
So got a site here which is in the Victorian Mallee region. So it's a classic for showing this dune swale response. And we've got this variability in the field. So yes, some of it's soil type related, but we also got to be thinking about that nutrition side of things. So when we look at the Engage app, as we're harvesting, this data can be flowing into the system, into the app via the CropScan Ag cloud. So again, you use your same login with the CropScan Ag cloud for logging into Engage. And when we look at this across this bottom tray here, these are the layers that will be coming in. So for wheat, we get protein and moisture. And for those with a CAN bus enabled system, we can then be pulling in the yield directly as well. Or we can upload the yield afterwards, and there are some other tutorials around that yield uploading. So as far as the raw data goes, it's a really good starting point for assessing the field and what variation we're seeing. So here is a classic for seeing sort of 5 or 6% variation in the field. So you've got the legend on the right-hand side, so being able to work through that. And really what we want to be doing is saying if we're fertilizing for that 11.5%, how did we go on what went above or below that target? And that's, yes, obviously we're managing soil type variations here, but that helps us ask the question is, what was stopping us all being in that 11.5% peak? So currently we've only got 20% of this field sitting in that. And in the app overall, the protein average was sitting around 12.2 is what the average is. But when we look at that, we've got a fair amount of spread across the field from there. So one of the really handy tools is we go between protein and for the same field, we've got the yield as well. And quite a few people say, oh, just flip-flops. They're just inverse of each other. And to a point, yep, there is some inverse relationships, but there's also some really interesting areas once you actually run the analysis. So we were doing a lot of this analysis, this field performance map work. So doing this yield protein correlation, and we've been able to bring that together in the app. So if you are set up on the app, you can go up to the magnifying glass in the top left-hand corner. You can select your year, which for this data set is in 2021, and go confirm. Then as we come down, we've got the single field or multi-field option. We'll go with the single field, especially if we're running, trying to rapidly work through data sets to advise. Just obviously we're running on a cloud server, so being able to just run individual fields is a handy tool. So we're in Owen's field. The correlation radius is defaulted to 50 meters. So working through that. And then in here is the setup for all the different crop types that this account has been using. I'll go down to wheat because we're looking at the wheat data. And in here, we can either adjust the settings around what do we want to be correlating it based on, what do we want to be freezing our targets on around this. So we can either do field averages for protein as picking where the average protein, which in this field was about 12.2%, and freeze it as that, or we can manually set it to a number there. So we might say 11.5 might have been our target, and we can do the same with the yield. And quite often we'll just leave it on the average yield. Phosphorus removal, people use different factors for their work on 3 kilos is quite common. Potassium removal as a standard, like how many kilos per ton has been removed, we've set for 3.4. You can adjust these two. The sulfur and nitrogen, like we touched on earlier, is really closely linked to the protein content. So these are locked away, and you can't adjust these. These are locked to the actual protein measurement in the grain. So we can process that, and out of this we'll get the yield protein correlation as well as the different removal maps as well. So this becomes a really easy snapshot tool for generating a suite of maps that most growers can get a lot of value out of. So we just run submit on that, and that'll go off, and so it takes a couple of minutes to just be processing that in the background. as we're doing that, I recommend you start going on to the next field and start looking at the data elsewhere. And just out of interest, when we had similar management when we look at wheat across this grower's property, but when we start looking at other data sets, when we go across to the field just next door, we can see when we go across to the protein, this field is now averaging 11.6. So even just going side by side with two fields which have had similar management overall from that year, we've got a difference in how that field's overall performed on its, I guess, using that protein as that benchmarking guide for where we've optimized our inputs. So this is where we can have that conversation, and this is great working in with your agronomist on as well, and saying we've got data which we can now help you ask the questions. We don't have all the answers. The answers that the data is telling us a lot of information, but it helps us ask the questions around how we can manage our strategy, because obviously nitrogen is a dynamic beast. It's so dependent on the amount of rainfall, what our overall yield target is. So we've got to be, there's a gamble in it, obviously, but we just want to have more confidence in our decision making, and this is what this data can help provide. So we can make layers of protein or yield or any other layer that's in this program. So if we do have a layer selected like this one, we've got protein selected here. We can come across to the right hand side and select the plus button. We can do a grid or a contour. I do recommend doing grids. Contours can look prettier, but when you're looking at the functionality of variable rate management, the grids really are the preference. Then as we go through, you set the crop type, so the year, the crop type, which we can pick up, say it's going canola. We can say, might be if it's a seeding operation or a spreading operation, we'll do spreader for this one. We can select the product. You can adjust all this in the background as well. Urea, and also big one has been getting the A-B lines in as well. So if you do have different shape fields, or you've got A-B lines running on different angles, for those who have played around with different farm management software programs, quite often every grid orientates to north-south, and it can be quite difficult to change that. We recognise that as a key feature we needed, so we can adjust the grid to snap to A-B lines, which is really helpful. So in these ones, these can all be imported from your own farm management software, or like your field management software might be from your John Deere Operations Center or CNHI Connect platform like AFS PLM Connect. We can import them in, so we can lock that in and then go next. And then this is this step of where that'll go off and create a management zone. And like I say, I do recommend then you go on to the next one, because that'll take around 30 seconds to a minute to generate that management zone, which we can then assign the rates to. And like I was saying, we've got the different layers. When you bring in yield data, it'll also bring the elevation in with it. So as we go forward, different growers might want to do a seeding rate map based on the elevation, or just want to do seeding rate on yield or total removal based on yield, that we can also display that yield data as well. And same process, we hit the for creating prescription off the yield map. And this is where a lot of people have thought, oh, we can only make nitrogen maps in this software, but no, we can make whatever map you're wanting to. You can assign, it could be a gypsum, it could be a lime rate, so like using a legume map, say like a legume, like a lentil or fava beans, using a yield map off that might be perfect for doing a lime prescription on based on the pH. So just handy tools to be able to generate those layers. So we've then got the, again, select the crop type, change it up. In this case, might be for that, do the spreader. Product, for this case, might do the lime like we're saying. And we can pick a A-B line again. Again, they'll just go off and generate in the background. So really simple ways to start getting that zoning to happen. We can then, as you go through, again, we've got these different layers, and I think it's just worth noting as we go around these different fields again. So came a little bit further south, but on a similar production system overall. And here up at the top, we've got the protein sitting at 11%. So immediately just across from a paddock average perspective, we've got an 11, 11.6 and 12.2. So we've already got this variation sitting between fields. Then we've got within fields this variation occurring. So like I say, it just helps ask the questions on where we might be going. And like we touched on, when we're looking at the protein and the yield, this is some of the different layers we can then get out. And the key one being the we've got the performance map. So we're thinking about that field performance. So that's that yield and that protein overlay happening. And then it helps us make simple sense of the data. So different people have different strategies around the nitrogen management around these data sets. Some are very much focused on the protein and using, really backing in on that layer, which is a great strategy. I've found the growers who have dealt with some of their other constraints, might be lime, it might be phosphorus, gypsum for sodic soils. If they've dealt with other limitations, you can have more confidence in just using the protein layer. If not, I really do recommend the performance map is a great starting point because it helps us combine that yield and that protein together to generate these prescriptions from and really work on a simple strategy. You're not necessarily going to even out a field overnight, but what we want to do is start seeing that spread go from 5% variation in protein results down to like 3%, 4 to 3 to 2, like, and tighten up that protein variation. That's critically what you want to be benchmarking yourself on, because obviously your end result is still dependent on those seasonal conditions. So you can again make a prescription map from these layers as well. So hit the plus button, create, say, the grid, select the crop type here, or again, and then we might do go a cedar, and it might be urea down the tube you want to do, and pick up a beeline and go next on that. So again, that goes off and runs. It'll be grayed out while it is running, and then once it's loaded, it'll then turn white, like a lighter colored gray, and that's how you know that those layers are then good to run. The other one we've got here is the phosphorus removal. So we've got the performance map. We've then got like your likes of your nitrogen removal and your phosphorus removal, potassium removal, sulfur removal. So we've got these maps, but finding the phosphorus removal really helpful as a starting point for what our zoning for our replacement map. So a lot of growers that say working on phosphorus replacement plus maybe 20% more or whatever as your phosphorus strategy. You can use these maps. They've essentially already zoned that up, and you can see your different zones there. So we can create a prescription based off those with zones based on what we are removing there. So if we can create a phosphorus MAP map here. So this is the one we just generated earlier. So I can see that. MAP link to the AB line. So yes, we go over and replace that from there. And this one we generated earlier, remembering we had the yield and the protein that we were working through. We then had the performance map that was then generated out on the back end of it. So with these maps, we can then see, I guess, working on that theory of what we were talking about earlier. We've got the green zone was really hitting our target zone. So in this field, we had 33% of that area we nailed with the nitrogen strategy, or the grower managed that well. And in then the yellow zone, we still got 31% that was essentially under fertilized, so finished with the higher yielding but lower in protein. which is not uncommon for the, I guess, talking about the sand dunes in the Mallee region, but it's something we can then think about the strategy on how do we help manage that. And then by the same token here, we've got the high protein sitting in the blue. So this is a really neat one where it's like a third, but where we can see that essentially the strategy for this year would be saying, well, let's go and do a soil test in this blue zone. We can drop these pins in here for the soil test. We can use this tool for dropping pins there for that. Do a soil test in the blue zone and do a soil test in the yellow zone. And what we're seeing is sort of ranging between commonly sort of 20 to 40 kilos of deep N differences across those zones within a field. So rather than just doing a standard transect across a field and averaging getting a field average of the deep N, we can then create the sampling to link back to what this data to help cross-validate. So test your own area to see what that variation is, but quite commonly see that sort of 20 to 40 kilos variation of deep N, which then links us back to potentially starting around that 30 to sort of 40 kilos of urea spread, like variation, as we go across those zones. So like I say, it just helps build the confidence in this whole approach. So in this field, we've just generated that that phosphorus map. So this where we could be then again push and hold on this one on the green and to go edit the layer. And then we can put our rates in again. So 60, 50, 5, and say 40. And you can see the ones that are bolded here are the ones that have got a color on the field. So we can then go save on that. And then that will be then ready to then export out to and is a completed prescription. So that's ready immediately. So that MAP layer is then good to go. So we can then export that off to another platform, which I'll run through in a second. So when we run these analytics on these different zones, so we're able to do the analytics, get this bulk data set of maps. We can then, like I went through, do the individual protein maps. We can then do the yield-based ones as well. So we can do these different methods for generating them. Once we're in these, you can also really easy to do some of the strip trials as well. So for argument's sake, if this was one we wanted to create a prescription off, we can edit this layer. This is for this was doing the liming, so it might be 3 tons, 2.5 to 1.5 at 1, and we go. We can then go edit zones. We've got these tools here for grabbing the field, but for argument's sake, let's run a test between the top end and the bottom end of the field for looking at these different rates. And rather than doing that, I'm going to do a high rate across it to see how that performs with a different liming rate. For argument's sake, could be nitrogen, could be whatever, but really simple to run some trials in there and complete that on the field. So really tried to work through getting this again simplified for all to be able to use. We've then got a snapshot view up in the top left hand corner of the reports, essentially summarizing all of this as well. So we've got the harvest summary, so protein, moisture, yield summary for each of the fields. We've then got across the top here, you can go through the fertilizer, and that field that we just created has dropped in the lime, average lime rate and the required volume, as well as the MAP that we created before. We've then got the performance zones, so we can do a snapshot summary of the blue zone, the green zone, the yellow zone. So as you go and do it on each field, you can get a summary of like, okay, on average, we did about 33% was in our target zone, which means there's, we can then look at saying what's in each of those zones and say, well, how much of the farm needs to actually be increasing their nitrogen and how much is potentially decreasing. So thinking about that, we've got a summary area for the notes and also the soil testing section when we create those. So to generate those, if we did want to do drop a flag for a note, you can just hit this one. That's going to drop a pin. You can move that around where you want to drop that and make a note and say add and say lime trial. Save that. And then that's going to drop a flag there for that. And then also with the soil tester, we can do the same. So you might, like I say, want to do soil testing in these different zones. We can add a soil test 1. And what that'll do is create the GPS locations for that. We can also navigate to these points on the app, which working with the agronomists, they can navigate to it on the app. A lot of them will be running their own laboratory data management software to be able to submit samples. So once we get the results back, we can work in with that data from there. But otherwise, really trying to have this link back to having this data looping back to helping make more sense for your decision making. So if we then go back to one of these other fields here with Owens and this MAP map. So now we've got these maps generated. We've created that zone, and then what you need to do to export these this data, we can have it end up going to one of two places. So once we push and hold on the green, and you can either edit the layer. So this is where you come in and edit the rates. So a lot of growers, we've been doing this over the last couple of months, getting that data all processed and out, and start creating those maps, getting some rough budgets around what we might be requiring fertilizer wise, and then we're now coming back and editing it based on how much moisture's there, or now getting some deep end numbers back from the lab to be able to work through that. So once we have here, we've got the edit layer, delete layer if you want to remove it, and then export to CNHI. So that's where we can export it to your machinery portal, or if you're with John Deere with the operations center, it'll say export to John Deere Ops Center. So all you do is select that, so export to CNHI. Once that does that, that's going to ship that off to the CNHI portal and also to our CropScan Ag Cloud. So depending on what system you're running, I'll just come back to the computer screen. We can then this screen. Get the zoom back up. So you can be back in your CropScan Ag portal here, and in here you'll have your different years where your data's been sitting. So you'll be at your in your files section. So you've got import and sync and files, and then you can go down to the year that you have been creating the zones, and then we can come in here and you'll have management zones, different ones that we've created, and so they'll be sitting there as a shapefile. Zip, which you can then download here and then drop into any of your screens that will accept them. We can go through those different file formats that, different screens have got their different formats that they require, or folder structure. So we can go through that to support you through that. But otherwise, that's where they're all sitting. Or we can go across to the My Farm, and when you're in those areas there, so all of those files will then be pushed out to in the settings area. You go to files, data files, and you'll have these files sitting out here where you can either download them directly as a shapefile, or you can work through assigning them to the field. And here's some that we've obviously takes a little bit to get them through with the CNHI platform, but you can come through here. And you see this is how they'll then be displayed as these prescriptions ready to go at a later date. So really simple way of linking the whole system together to be able to bring that in. So I say that CropScan Ag Cloud is a bit of a hub on that, but yeah, might hand over to Ian to be able to run through a little bit more on this data management after export and how we can utilize that data from there. Thanks, Ian.
Brilliant, thanks, Ed. And yeah, we're the part that we've got to at the moment has sort of been based on good agronomy and the information you've got from your yield monitor and the protein sensor. What one of the sort of key parts of Engage is that we're able to utilize the management tree from the portals themselves, whether it be the CNH portals or the John Deere Operations Center portals. This is the Engage is one of the only softwares that is available where we're pulling the management tree names, and that is the grower, farm, field, AB line, and boundaries. And whilst in some ways it doesn't sound particularly exciting, it's actually essential to making this super efficient and work really well for you once we get into sending out the AB lines or sending the prescription maps out to the monitor. And so a number of you may well have heard me talk about the sort of the key points to remember when we're looking at even before we start creating prescription maps, is look that we've got an accurate management tree and a digital farm. And what we mean by that is that our digital farm represents our physical farm. So all the field names, the paddock names are the same. And the joy of having the hub on the CNHI portal or the operations center is that they will be shared with all the monitors as well. We haven't got to start creating new field names in Engage, which is what most other pieces of software do. So you're starting, if you're doing that, you're duplicating the efforts and you're starting to create inaccuracies in what you're going to do. And if we're creating a prescription map that doesn't have the AB line that we want to have that's in the on the display, we're going to start to run into problems later on. So by drawing the data down into Engage from the portals, we're reducing the probability of things going wrong, and that's so super important when we're wanting to put all of this together. And we want to have a list of sort of uncluttered list of AB lines as well. As Ed has mentioned, that we can create the grid maps based on your AB lines. And again, it's one of the only pieces of software that I've come across where we're able to snap the grid to an AB line. So you're positioning your vehicle right in the center of the grid, and it's following whichever line you want to, rather than just north or south. And so you get the accuracy of your application there, and you haven't got to create a new AB line. We're using what you've already got, and that's super important. And when we're wanting to look at improve our monitor management before the beginning of each season is we just clear the monitor off. None of these monitors are really designed to store data. They're designed to collect and apply it. And so if we've taken fence lines out during the year, we want to make sure that is kept aligned with our digital system. And if we've got old field names on our displays, we don't want to have those. It'll just create confusion. So we only want to have one digital farm only. Otherwise, we start to create problems. If you've got that, then everything that Ed has been talking to you about from a prescription map point of view will work when it comes to the monitors. So if we want to look at how we export information out to a CNHI monitor, these are just a couple of slides. And some of they'll be duplicated from what Ed's been talking about, but these are some slides that I prepared earlier. So we've got our field boundaries in our AFS PLM Connect portals, which is what we want. And here I just use an old piece of software to create a prescription map. This is exactly the same as what Engage does. We've created our prescription map, and we then will do the export that Ed mentioned, and then we'll upload it to the portals. So we'll take our shape files and import them onto the portals. The portal we can see here, it's been imported in, so it's exactly the same as was created externally. So we've got the map in the portals, we know it's there, we know it's correct. Then we want to send it out to our display. Our export file type here is ISO XML. Send it to our equipment. We will click next. We'll go through setting the prescriptions up correctly to sort of go to the display. We've got videos. We're going to be creating videos on this to take you through it step by step. It's not the most interesting thing to display and talk about on a webinar like this, because generally we go through it too quickly and you can't follow it. So it's much better to have a look at the videos that we're going to create after this webinar, where we'll take you through it step by step, and you can press pause and follow the videos through, so you can get it out to the monitor that you want it to. So we'll confirm all of our attributes. It gets sent to the display, and this is what you'll see on a display. New data has appeared on our display from the portal. We do want to import it. Yes, we do. And then a couple of clicks later, we can see our spreading map in the display. You can't see the map on the screen there because it's actually a simulator that we were using to create it. But the map does appear there, and you can carry on doing the application as has been created in the Engage app. So that mechanism is improving all the time between Engage and the CNHI portals to make that streamlined and quicker from an execution point of view. If you've got a John Deere display, we've as Ed has shown here, this is the maps that we've got, and we've assigned our rates. We've exported them. Click the export to John Deere button, and this is going directly from the Engage app to the Operations Center app, and we select the field that we want to export it to. So we selected the field. Now we select our product that we want to apply. In this example, it's just the gypsum. And then we select the prescription that has been sent across from the Engage app. So we select the one that we want to use. We select the machine, and the prescription has now been assigned to a product and to a machine, and we're now ready to go. So we select the product that we're working in, and as we can see at the bottom there, we've got send, and then it'll appear on the this is where we send it to the vehicle, and off we go and do our spreading or our seeding job. So whichever we've got there's Trimble formats, there's Topcon formats, there's lots of other different formats, but rather than go through each of them individually, we'll create videos to go through that. But certainly from a CNHI point of view and an Operations Center point of view, the process is getting slicker and slicker. But underpinning all of that the points that we started off with is getting the accurate management tree and digital farm. I really can't emphasize that strongly enough. If we keep that all organized and the same, so if you take a fence line out on your physical farm, make sure you merge the paddocks on your digital farm. So when you're creating your maps, it's aligned in the right direction, and keep your monitors clean. And if you follow those principles, everything that you then want to do from a variable rate application map point of view starts to become much easier. And most importantly, when you send it out to a display to go and do a job in the field, it will actually appear where you want it to be. You've got the right A/B lines to follow, and the map will do what it's going to, what you wanted it to do. So that's a very, very quick run through of what it looks like on the display. But underpinning that, as I keep saying time and time again, is just look at your management tree and look at historical data. If you've got any questions, or you want us to look at historical yield data, as we do for a number of clients, of bringing historical data in, we can do that and make sure it's all aligned to the right boundaries. We can merge paddocks for you if you want us to do that, because got full confidence then that when you want to go and do a job, you can do, and it's going to be in the right place at the right time. So that was just a very quick run through of the sort of what's happening from a monitor point of view, and very happy to answer questions at the end of the presentation if you need me to.
Thank you, Ian. That's excellent.
Sharing it and hand it back to you.
No, that's all good, and I really appreciate those insights. It is really a fundamental component to get right. And like Ian did say, if you are struggling on that, but this whole system does break down if that's not right. And people at different stages of having that sorted. So if you do need support on that, we've got resources to be able to help you on that. So do reach out. Best to email us at support@cropscanag.com, and then we can filter it from there. We also have been working through updating our website recently, and we've got training videos sitting on our website. They're also available on YouTube as well. But yeah, utilising those for some of these little tips and tricks on some of these steps. We're breaking it down into these different little training modules as well, because everyone's, again, at different timelines on this journey of the management, from the back-end data management to decision trees to then post-harvest data management as well. And of course, we've also got the CropScan hardware videos as well, with some of the updates coming through from there. So really appreciate the time of everyone joining us on this call. It's great to sort of be touching base with growers keen to start utilising their data, and like I say, there are different directions we can go on this. Really keen for growers to just make a start. I know it can be confusing sometimes, but even if we pick a couple of fields, start chipping away and working on a bit of a nitrogen management strategy on that. I said, more than happy to either jump in on a call with yourself and your agronomist, have a chat through, get everyone on the same page on the strategy, and then work through from there. But happy to have any questions if anyone wants to jump in, either in the chat or come off mute as well. But otherwise, really appreciate you coming along today, and thank you, Ian, for joining us from sunny London.
It's not quite so sunny London at the moment. It's underwater.
Yes, but no, appreciate everyone joining us this morning. So thank you, and we'll be sending out more information around some of the training and stuff if you're on the emailing list, which you all are. So thank you.